welcome to another installment of Recruiting Insider Live. I'm your host, Branden Roth. Um, Sorry for missing last week. Lost internet from the storm, so we're back here another week. We're gonna wrap up basketball season as it comes to a close. Obviously, we'll still have a little bit more recruiting news in the coming weeks, but basketball season is winding down, so we're gonna go over some of the guys at the end of the season who are making late decisions. We're also going to get into some Terps football talk since basketball has pretty much gone down the crapper this season. Well, we're going to turn the page to football and look at some of the guys who have performed at some camps last weekend and see how they did. But let's start off with basketball. I just want to start off with Charles Glover, a guy who I've talked about 3 or 4 times on this show. Since last time I've seen you guys, he actually got an offer and committed to Mount St. Mary's. I just wanted to start off by congratulating Chuck on that. Definitely, the Mount gets a big-time player in Chuck. I think he can come in and contribute on a team that needs depth and needs skilled players right away. They're definitely a good team, and I think Charles will get a lot of exposure from playing with the Mount. You just saw them play against LIU the other day against some other Maryland kids, and they lost, but they're definitely going to be a factor in the NEC. So I just want to say congratulations to Charles on the commitment, and hopefully it does big things up in Mount St. Mary's. Next guy I want to touch on a little bit. Some might argue it's not really recruiting news, but I think it is. Keel Carr has been big in the news lately. A lot of people are talking about how he's going to forgo his commitment to Seton Hall and play overseas. I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this time. A lot of people are speculating it. He's tweeted out about it. There's supposed to be an announcement on Saturday night. So I think at this point it's probably pretty much a foregone conclusion that he's going overseas to play. And with his academics and everything and his skill level and his appeal, I think it might be the best route for him. It kind of depends on where he goes with it. I mean, I think the next big question now is where does he end up going? Does he end up going to Europe, to the Middle East, to China? I think his landing spot really is important for his future success. I mean, if he ends up somewhere in Europe or in Turkey or Greece or somewhere like that, I think it could end up being good for him in the long run. He'll get a little bit more of a world view, get out of the Baltimore area, which I think is important for him probably, just to get out of here and see a little bit more of the world and get a little bit more of a different view. And you see a lot of other players going overseas, so it's not like he's going to be the only guy over there. And I think one thing that might be troublesome for him if he ends up in a Chinese league, a lot of feedback that I've heard from other players that have played over there is that it's a lot different from the European and Greek and Turkish leagues. You're a lot more secluded. There's not much to do. The culture is way different and not as accepting as some of our American culture. So I think his landing spot is really going to depend on how successful he is at the European level, at the Turkish level, Chinese level, at the overseas professional level. And period, I think definitely going to be something a lot of people in the DMV are keeping an eye on and seeing what Akil does at the next level. Another guy, probably the biggest uncommitted guy still in the DMV is Junior Itu. Obviously, there's been lots of controversy with him this year, but nonetheless he's the highest rated recruit still left in the DMV. And I got a chance to talk to him at the WCAC championship game, and let's take a quick look at what he told me about his recruiting steps that are going to be coming up after the season. I mean, what's the first thing you want to do in the off season?
Take a visit, like Miami, cause I think I'm going to Miami, so I'm taking a visit next week and then start to make my decision.
I mean, what's the first thing? All right, that was just a quick clip of Junior Ito telling me he thinks he's going to Miami. So I mean, usually if a recruit comes out and says something like that, they're usually pretty sure. Most of these guys are media savvy nowadays and know not to come out and to, especially with recruiting info, to give anyone anything too soon. So I think that's a good fit for Junior. Definitely a big get for Jim Larinaga and his crew after a big year. I think Junior fits in well down there. They definitely need some big men. They're going to lose a couple of good big men this year. They need someone who can play some defense and get in the lane, and I think Junior can do that. I think he can definitely provide that defensive spark, and his offensive game is getting better. So I look for Junior to be another guy that improves as he gets into college with a little more guidance and a better system to sit in. I mean, he's been all over the place. He's been in 2 or 3 different schools over the last few years. So just having some stability, I think, more than anything, will really help his game. Um, so we'll look to see if that's his actual decision. I mean, I've heard that he's also interested in Xavier, which those are pretty much the 2 main schools. I mean, obviously there's some other schools in the mix, but I think Xavier and Miami are the 2 that he was really considering down the stretch and still is. But at the end of the day, I think especially the way Miami's played this year, his connection to Florida and all that, I think Junior ends up at Miami. So. Let's move on a little bit. We've got a couple more guys to talk about. Next guy I want to talk about is Michael Cunningham from Duval. He's actually a transfer from PVI. Didn't get a whole lot of playing time at PVI the past couple years, but went back to PG County and to public school at Duval and has played really well this year. I mean, might have been PG County's best player outside of Dion Wiley, maybe. So you talk about a guy who's got a well-rounded skill. He can shoot, he can pass. Um, he's very athletic on defense. I've seen him play once or twice this year. I saw him play against Roosevelt earlier in the year, and he was one guy who really was trying to keep that team afloat at the end of the game. Couldn't quite do it, but he was definitely scoring. He recently just got an offer from Towson, which is big for him. I know he's been lobbying hard to try and get a D1 offer, so he finally got that offer he coveted. He's also been getting some looks from Xavier lately. I think that's a school that if they came in and offered, that he would probably commit right away. Um, I think that would be a good get for Xavier. I think this kid has potential to grow. He's still not the biggest kid in the world, and I think he's still growing. So he can work on his offensive game, work on his defensive game, and get again kind of like Junior, get in a system where he can be set for a few years and work on that, and he can work on his game more so than worrying about where he's going to be the following year. So I think that's a kid who is more of a natural scorer than most people you see in the area. So I look for him to get a couple more offers down here in the last month or so, last of recruiting. And I think Xavier is a team that if they did come in and offer would stand a really good chance of getting him. So a couple other kids I want to talk about real quick off of the Magruder High School I've talked about before, but I see them so often that I'm really impressed with these guys. They've got great work ethic and they're great players. I got to start with J.J. Epps. I recently did a feature on the Washington Post. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on allmetsports.com. He just talks about being undersized and playing with a chip on his shoulder, and he talks about the next level. He's got offers from UNC Greensboro, Jacksonville, and Hartford. His grades have obviously kept him from getting more offers than he would have gotten otherwise. He's told me every time I talk to him, he's in the classroom trying to get his test scores up, trying to get his grades up. I think JJ's route ends up being very similar to a teammate of his last year's, Garland Owens. Garland came out of his senior season not having a lot of offers for the same reasons. Didn't have the greatest grades in the world, but he went to Massanutten military school where you got to buckle down in a military school. So he got his grades together, played at a high-profile post-grad team, and got a bunch of offers. He got an offer from Seton Hall, from Boston College, and UTEP, and a few others. And he ended up accepting an offer to Boston College. So I think I look for JJ to do much of that same route. To go post-grad. Where he ends up going, who knows? Could it be a Massanutten? Maybe. Could it be somewhere like a Mount Zion or a Notre Dame prep up in Boston? I don't know. We'll have to wait for that decision. But I definitely think he's capable of playing D1 basketball at a higher level than the offers he has now. I look for someone like maybe a George Mason or an American or someone like that local who could really use a spark plug. And that's just what JJ is. He's got a high motor. He's got a good jump shot. He gets to the rim. And he plays really good defense, too, for a guy his size. So he can definitely contribute at a high level to a program. So we'll wait to see what happens from JJ. Probably have to wait later in the period for that, but we'll see what happens. Another guy on Magruder I want to touch on before we wrap up basketball is Justin Whitmer. I've talked about him before too, but I talked to him in the regional final against QO last week, and he said right now he's planning to walk on in Salisbury if nothing comes in before the signing period. Which I think is ridiculous. The kid doesn't have an offer yet. I mean, he's super athletic. He can definitely play the three at a big time, not a big time, but I mean a D1 school. He can play the three at a D1 school, no problem. He's got a good 3-point shot. He can get to the rim. He's a good. He's obviously been a role player up until this year for Magruder, but he's really stood out this year, and especially at times where JJ was hurt or Nick wasn't necessarily hitting his shots. Justin was the guy who stepped up and really filled that role as a leader and a scorer. I think he would be an asset to a lot of teams in this area, and if I were coaches in this area, and I can't imagine there's a ton watching the show tonight, but if I was a coach watching the show tonight, I would definitely go look at some film of Justin Whitmer, talk to the kid, and I think you'll be getting a steal of a pick. So I'm gonna wrap up basketball there for this evening. We're gonna talk about some Terps recruiting, football recruiting, here. So let's get into Terps talk. All right. Past weekend, there was a big event up in Frederick. It was thrown by the Next Level Nation recruiting sponsorship group, and there was a lot of Maryland targets there. Some who we've heard of before, some who we haven't. A lot of guys who are out of Friendship. So obviously, any guys that are coming out of Friendship, Maryland's gonna be in on if they're good and they're gonna have a chance with. That pipeline has really opened up in the last year or two. The guy who took overall MVP honors was DeAndre Payne. He he's a great player. I've seen him play in person a couple times at HD Woodson. He's gonna form one of the best defensive backfields in the country next year. I mean, with him, with Jalen Tabor, with Dewan Funderbunk. You have another guy I'm going to talk about in a few minutes called Dimitri Lee. They've got 4 guys who are going to have Division I scholarship offers by the end of this year in their defensive backfield, and 2 guys who are going to be 4-star rivals, 150 type guys. So you look at DeAndre. He can play. He can probably play safety, and he might at Friendship. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to balance that, but I think he's obviously more of a natural fit at corner. He's got offers from just about everybody. He's got a top 10 of a few teams. Obviously, Maryland's in there, UVA's in there, Tennessee, and there's some others. But I think Maryland's definitely got a good shot at him, just like with any Friendship kid. It's encouraging to see him taking overall MVP honors at an event that had so many high-level prospects at it like that. So definitely encouraging to see a local kid doing so well. Another kid that I wanted to talk about, especially with my connection to Avalon School, Adam McLean, who was at the Avalon School until this year, and guess where he transferred? Friendship Collegiate. He's a kid who got an offer from Florida State early this year, hitting the camp circuits a lot of the same way Jakil Vey and Rashid Ibrahim did. And I know Maryland is been on him hard, and it wouldn't surprise me if they get ready an offer here in the coming days. So he's a really athletic kid. He's a big kid, would fit perfectly in the 3-4 system as a D end. Definitely an athletic guy too. I really was impressed by him when I saw him out at Avalon's practice this year. I mean, not many guys get early Florida State offers like that, so I think that alone speaks to how good this kid can be, and obviously getting recruited by Friendship Collegiate also speaks to how good this kid can be. So he did really well at the Next Level Nation combine thing, whatever you want to call it. I've heard that he did really well and won out MVP at his defensive end position. So we'll see. We'll hear more from this kid in the coming years. Definitely, he's going to be one of these kids that when his class rolls around in 2015 is probably going to be one of the, if not the top guy in the area. So another guy in that class who is also from Friendship Collegiate, who's rising up really big right now, is Corvez Bolware. He's an offensive lineman, which Maryland definitely needs right now. Maryland's first team to offer him, so they're in early on him. That's great. Um, he won a top offensive lineman at the showcase. So you talk about a couple of rising youngsters out of Friendship Collegiate, and those two, both guys that are going to be tops in the area in their class. Bolware is a really big kid, and you can tell he still needs to grow into his frame some more, so he could get it even bigger. He's already 6'4", 280, maybe even a little bit bigger. So we're looking at another kid who's really going to start filling out, and getting in that weight room is going to help. And by the time he's a senior, he's going to be huge, and he's going to have offers from a whole bunch of people, just like a lot of these other guys do. So um, the last guy I want to talk about real quick is Dimitri Lee. He's a little bit of a lesser known guy out of Friendship, but he's really stepped on at the showcase and combine level lately. Really has shown that he should garner some D1 interest. I know he's gotten interest from James Madison, Delaware, and Maryland. So I would look for him to get some offers soon. So we look at Friendship Collegiate, and they've been stacked last year. They're going to be stacked this year, and they're going to be stacked for years to come. So the Friendship is definitely the hot ticket in town right now, and a lot of these kids that are good at local schools are transferring to Friendship because they want to get scholarship offers. And I mean, that's really what Friendship does better than anyone in the area right now, is gets kids to the next level. So you look at that, and you look at their connection with Maryland and some Florida State and Tennessee and some of these other schools that they have really good connections with, and they're really doing it right at Friendship right now. So we'll see how that ends up panning out. But for now, they're getting kids from all over the area to want to transfer to Friendship. And obviously, there's been the rumors of Deshaun Hand going there. Whether that's going to happen or not, who knows? But if it does, that would end up being one of the biggest things in high school football this year. So we'll keep our eyes peeled to that. But a couple other guys I want to talk about real quick at the QB position that were at the Next Level Nation that actually aren't going to Friendship Collegiate. The first guy that won QB MVP honors is John Lovett. He's a kid at DeMatha who I really like. I've seen him a few times last year, and I was really impressed by him. I think he was the biggest difference in the step up DeMatha took this year from last year. Last year, 2 years ago, their quarterback situation was really in flux. They played 3 or 4 different guys and couldn't get one guy to really step up and take over that position and play well. This year, they got Lovett to transfer in. He really took over those reins right from the beginning and played well. The one game that stands out to me in particular was the WCSD championship game. He really showed a lot of poise and a lot of good pocket presence in that game. Threw for a couple touchdowns, ran for a few first downs. He might not have the fastest 40 time, might not be the greatest runner in the world, but he can scramble enough to where he can pick up a first down if he needs to, if the pocket breaks down, and he's got a great arm. So he's another kid who I think his only offer right now is from Buffalo, but I look for him, especially with the season DeMatha is probably going to have upcoming, to really blow up in the coming years. He's got a chance to really be the next great quarterback out of DeMatha, and they've had a few. Especially they're going to be so loaded in next year that they could do really, really well, and he could be a product of that. So I'll look for John Lovett to move up big boards of a lot of teams, and he's someone I think Maryland might take a look at here, especially as the football season gets here and the season drags on, especially if some of these other guys that they're looking at don't pan out. A couple of those guys I'm going to talk about next. Will Ulmer and William Crest both were there and they played well. Lovett won MVPs, but from everyone I talked to about the event, Crest and Ulmer both played well. Ulmer still being a little bit more of a scrambler than Crest, but Crest still having the intangibles, having a great arm. Maybe not the most accurate of arm, but he's got a cannon. He can definitely throw the deep ball. Got good legs. He's a top-rated guy, and he's got offers from a lot of people, including Ohio State. So he's going to be someone that, if Maryland can pull, will really do a lot for their stature in the area. We've pulled a couple kids out away from Ohio State recently, so maybe Crest can be the next one. He's a kid who I think, out of any of the quarterbacks that are on Maryland's target list so far, would fit in the best at Maryland. Probably he's got that little bit of everything you need to play the spread. He can run, he can throw. Um, he's working on his accuracy. He's getting better. He's just a pure athlete. So I think given a chance to put in Maryland's spread system could really do well. Ulmer is another kid who could do well in that spread offense. Like I said, he's more of an athlete right now than he is a quarterback. But he's definitely a great runner. I've seen him play, and they really rely on his running to carry them to victory a lot. A little more than I'm sure they would like over there at St. John's. But his throwing is getting better. I mean, each game I saw him, he got a little more accurate, got a little bit better pocket presence. I mean, he just needs to. He has a tendency to roll out of the pocket a little too much and a little too early. But that'll come. He's still a young guy, so I look for him to have a really big year this year. Maybe surprise some people in the WCAC. I mean, I think this could possibly be the first year in a lot of years that maybe Good Counsel doesn't make the championship game. I don't know. The only thing that's pretty much a consensus right now is DeMatha is going to be really good. Outside of that, we'll have to wait and see. But we're gonna cut off a little short tonight, but that's pretty much all I've got for tonight. We're kind of in the lull of recruiting season right now as basketball season winds down and football combine and showcase season starts to vamp up. So we'll have some news from some of the other football showcases in the coming weeks. As basketball wraps up, we'll have all your final commitments and stuff like that. So tune back in the coming weeks to find out where your favorite guys in the area are going to school. I want to thank everyone for coming in and viewing today. Again, if you haven't seen the JJ Epps feature on allmedsports.com, go check that out. It's some of the best work I personally have done, so I'm really proud of it, and I just want to thank everyone for viewing. Have a good night, and go Terps.